The Libyan Coast Guard intercepts more than 500 migrants from the Mediterranean Sea. How a group of women in Kenya are helping make life less stressful for new mothers. And the most dazzling looks from the Met Gala red carpet in New York City. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. This evening we begin in northern Africa with the exodus of migrants trying to reach Europe by crossing the Mediterranean Sea is now in full swing. Libyan Coast Guard vessels intercepted more than 500 migrants on 4 inflatable boats on Monday off the country's western coast and returned them to Libya. A Coast Guard spokesman says one boat carrying about 100 migrants was intercepted near the city of Sabratha, about 70 kilometers west of Tripoli. Another 3 boats with a total of more than 400 migrants on board were picked up off Garabuli, east of Tripoli. Libya remains the main departure point for migrants trying to get to Europe by sea. The European Union is supporting Libya's Coast Guard to intercept more migrants, a policy criticized by activists who say they're being returned to inhumane conditions in Libya. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari is flying to Britain on Tuesday to see his doctor for a medical checkup. A statement issued last night by Garba Shehu, a senior spokesperson, said President Buhari is taking a 4-day trip to Britain and he is set to return to Abuja on Saturday, May the 12th. The surprise announcement could renew concerns about whether he is well enough to run for a second term next year. Buhari, who is 75 years old, spent 5 months in Britain last year for treatment for an unspecified illness. The president met his doctor last week in London on his return from Washington, where he had talks with U.S. President Donald Trump. Shehu says the doctor requested that Buhari return for an appointment, which he agreed to do. Now, Nigeria's government has given no further details Tuesday about the more than 1,000 Boko Haram hostages that the army says it rescued. The military used Twitter on Monday to announce it had rescued the people from the villages of Amchaka, Gara, Malamkari and Walasa in the Bama region of Borno State. In the tweets, it says the women, children and young men were being cared for in a hospital. Today, Nigerian news media had little coverage on the report, and military officials are now taking telephone calls from VOA seeking more details. Now, for many people, a cup of tea kickstarts their day, but how many of those who enjoy tea know how it is grown and processed? Africa 54's Esther Githui Yuwat visited Kenya, one of the world's top 5 tea producers, and she joins us now with the details. Esther.
That's right, Vincent. I will take our viewers inside a tea farm and to a factory that processes tea from the green leaf to that refreshing beverage. What you see here looks like a green carpet, but it's not. This is a canopy of lush green tea leaves across massive plantations in Limuru, about a 45-minute drive from Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Fiona Vernon runs the Kiambethu tea farm she inherited from her grandfather, who was a British settler and said to be the first to grow tea commercially in Kenya on a 60-acre farm.
Tea is an excellent crop for a large estate or smallholders because you pick it every 2 to 3 weeks, all the way through the year. So if you've got enough land to grow your food crops and maybe 5, 15, 20 acres of tea, you've got a constant income all through the year.
Tea begins with a seed, but what is largely grown now is a clone.
And your tea bushes will last between 50 and 70 years, as long as you keep picking them, fertilizing them and pruning them.
As we drive through tea plantations, we meet men and women picking tea with huge baskets strapped on their backs. They are fast and skilled at their job. Each basket holds up to 10 kilograms of tea leaves.
When you get to the factory, they inspect it very carefully and they want the nice soft leaves that are going to produce a good soft tea.
We arrive at Maramba Tea Factory, where tea is processed from the leaf to the cup. Factory manager Simon Karanja walks us through the steps of tea processing.
And the source of the raw material is actually the farmers whom we have contracted to be supplying us with green leaf. Our work is to process the teas, market the teas, and pay back the farmers.
Farmers deliver freshly picked tea leaves in trucks that go over a weighbridge to collect data on kilograms delivered. Once the trucks offload the tea leaves, they are weighed again and the gross net is recorded. And that figure is used to determine how much they get paid at the end of the month. The first step in tea processing is called withering. Monorails calibrated with hooks assist in offloading the fresh tea leaves to the decks. Production supervisor Lawrence Kimotho explains.
We are reducing the moisture content of this leaf by blowing in the air. This trap is provided with a mesh which is perforated, which allows air to go through the leaf. The process takes 8 to 16 hours.
What happens at the sifting is the withered leaf is run through a vibrating mechanism. The reason for doing this is to get rid of any foreign particles that could be in the tea.
The next stages are the cutting, tearing and curling of the leaves before fermentation.
Fermentation process takes about 1 to 1.5 hours. It is here that you form the taste of your tea.
The fermented tea goes through dryers to discharge black tea.
With some hot water, you can make a cup of tea at this point.
From here, the fermented tea goes through the sorting process using sieves of different mesh sizes, and then it's graded based on particle sizes from the biggest particles to the finer ones, and lastly, the finest, which looks like dust.
There is somebody who would want maybe a very strong cup of tea. This is somebody who will go maybe for the finest grade.
At the quality control room, Lawrence tastes the different grades of tea for briskness, strength and brightness.
You draw in the mouth, you jet in and atomize it in the mouth so that you pick all the flavors of tea. That is the strength, the briskness. As far as these liquors are concerned, everything is okay. So these teas are good to go to the market.
The factory specializes in black tea, which is now ready for packaging.
For your teas to remain fresh, they need to be as airtight as possible.
It is then taken to Mombasa for auction.
It is at Mombasa where we have the biggest tea auction, where all the teas from East and Central Africa meet for marketing. After the teas have been marketed, what happens now, we get back the payment, we pay back our growers, we pay the workers, and we keep everybody happy.
While you can still get pure black tea in Kenya's supermarkets, there are variations, with buyers and entrepreneurs adding flavors such as ginger, herbs and spices to attract a wide range of customers. And if you're like me, anytime is tea time.
Now, tea is grown in high altitude areas and enjoys plenty of rainfall. It is a top cash crop earner in Kenya that employs thousands of people. In 2016, Kenya ranked as world's top tea exporting country, surpassing giant tea producers like China, India, Sri Lanka and Vietnam.
Well, more than 30 million Africans are living abroad, and they play an important role as a source of financing and foreign exchange for African households. Well, Remit is an online money transfer service that provides international remittance services to expatriates and migrant workers. Is part 2 of my conversation with Catherine Wines, co-founder of Remit, about the service the company provides and how it ensures the system is not abused.
Obviously, you got limits based on kind of regulatory, environment. So, for example, the operators like M-Pesa impose $750 per transaction for international remittance. So you'll see it's not a very large amount. So we will impose limits as well on the send side, and some governments would also impose. But it's the monitoring of the transaction, and it's not just amount. Actually, it can be a lot of amount or linked account and so on. And that's where technology can really be really helpful to kind of give you this instant kind of alert on things that before maybe are by the more traditional players are done manually because they haven't got that technology.
Now, without scaring off your customers, is there like monitoring of a trend? I mean, it could be that I could make sure I'm below the limit, but I'm doing this every day or every other day, and in a month I might transfer a lot of money.
Yeah, well, obviously, if if you are doing, cumulatively large amounts, like any company, whether it's Remit or any other company, banks or other, money transfer operators, you will ask questions and say, what is the purpose of sending the amount? You are required by law to do that. So, the monitoring on transaction is done, very similarly, and, the same questions are being asked, and additional information, people will be asked to provide that. So that's very normal, and that's not, Remit is not unusual in that. That's a kind of, the law requires that.
Mm-hmm. There have been a few cases where people have actually intercepted money that was remitted to them, or to others, and managed to steal that money. What are some of the safeguards to ensure that nobody can get into the system?
If you're talking about mobile money, it's quite difficult unless you steal the mobile with the SIM card. Yeah. Then it's quite difficult to steal it because it's on the SIM, and therefore as soon as you contact the operator and there's plenty agent, it's kind of the SIM is put on hold and you can't use it. So that, to be frank, mobile money is a lot more secure from that point of view than cash. If you go and collect cash in some places, there's a risk that you're going to be actually, someone is going to try to take it away from you. So cash is a lot more dangerous than mobile money. And if you're looking, coming back to the point of compliance, with mobile money, and especially on a digital solution like ours, where you start digital and finish digital, there's a full audit trail, so you can follow the flow of the funds from start to end and what the funds are being used for. Whereas if you have cash to cash, then it's kind of, it's very difficult to follow and to have a proper audit trail.
Is there anything that you would like to say that I probably have not asked you up to this point?
I think what I'd like is to say the positive side of mobile money, because I've been in this industry of money transfer for many years now, and we've launched international remittance to mobile money and seen the growth and the benefits. And the benefits is for people, as I said, financial inclusion, because people will in Africa less than 20% of people have got a bank account. Mobile money has been able to include them into financial services and therefore access other services and also be able to set up business. But for me as a woman, what has been also very important is the fact that it's empowering a lot of women to be able to become independent financially, and I think mobile money has had a big role to play in that.
Well, Catherine Wines is the co-founder of World Remit, an online money transfer service. Well, Sub-Saharan Africa's fastest growing airline is expanding again. Ethiopian Airlines says it plans to buy more planes and strike more deals. The airline wants to revive defunct carriers in countries like Zambia and Malawi to grow its Southern African operations. It also aims to create a new airline in Mozambique that it will fully own. The airline has seen record profits, generating $2.7 billion in revenue during the 2016-2017 financial year. Now, according to the International Air Transport Association, Ethiopian Airlines has now outpaced regional competitors, Kenya Airways and South African Airways, to become Africa's largest airline by revenue and profit. In 2013, Ethiopian Airlines acquired a minority stake in Malawi Airlines to serve as a base for its Southern Africa operations. Now, the Africa 54 team is always thrilled when you reach out to us on social media to let us know what you think about us and the stories we cover. Now, we reported on Burundi announcing a 6-month broadcast ban on VOA and the BBC ahead of a constitutional referendum. AGL from the US seems to agree with it. He says, you have to understand, he says, that any media outlets from the US or Britain are tainted and corrupt and are always a tool used to influence the minds of those who use them. Well, they, meaning the government of Burundi, must protect the electoral process from Western influence. Well, now the Burundian government shut down nearly all private media in 2015 and has created a very hostile environment for journalists. So there is an old saying that democracy dies in darkness, and darkness is lack of information. Now, we recently reported about a new generation of Nigerian activists under the banner "Not Too Young to Run," who want to run for office in Nigeria. Beatrice Cruz from Zambia is very enthusiastic about empowering young people to enter politics. She writes, the "Not Too Young to Run" campaign should be adopted by all Africans. And it always makes us feel good to get encouraging messages from you. Now, yesterday, Andrew Ejiro Christophers from Lagos, Nigeria, reached out to us on Facebook and wrote, "Your network tells the story the way it is, without bias." Now, keep it coming. Keep up the good work, you say. Well, Andrew, thank you for your kind remarks, and please keep them coming. Now, reach out to us on Facebook at VOA Africa 54, and don't forget, we stream our show live every day. Also, follow me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Well, it's time for our Africa 54 Health Report, and joining us now is health correspondent Lino Medu with news on the cholera vaccine. Lino.
Well, government health officials in the Democratic Republic of Congo have confirmed 2 cases of Ebola in the northwestern town of Bikoro. Jean-Jacques Muyembe, head of DRC's National Institute for Biological Research, has confirmed the 2 cases and says at least 10 more are suspected. Meanwhile, scientists have identified 3 naturally occurring Ebola antibodies that could be used to design universal therapeutics that are effective against many different Ebola species. The newly identified antibodies bond at a different site on the Ebola virus than other antibodies currently used to develop Ebola therapies. The findings were recently published in Nature Microbiology. The Ebola virus causes a severe illness with high mortality rates in humans. The World Health Organization says the largest cholera vaccination campaign in history has been launched to provide oral cholera vaccine to more than 2 million people. The vaccines funded by Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, were sourced from the global stockpile and are being used to carry out 5 major campaigns in Zambia, Uganda, Malawi, South Sudan, and Nigeria. The campaigns will be completed by mid-June. They are being implemented by the respective ministries of health, supported by the WHO and partners of the Global Task Force on Cholera Control, mostly in reaction to recent cholera outbreaks. Cholera causes severe diarrhea and is contracted through eating or drinking contaminated food or water. Now, in a quest to reduce newborn death, a group of women in Kenya are donating maternal care packages that contain essential items to make the post-birth period a lot less stressful for the mothers. Take a look.
26-year-old Cynthia Akinyi Olo is admiring her newborn baby. She has just delivered her 3rd child in Lengo Medical Clinic in Mukururu, Kayaba, a slum in Nairobi. Before she leaves the hospital, she will receive a Total Care box, a maternal care package that contains 18 items for a mother and her newborn baby.
I appreciate for having been given this Total box. I will use it for my child's upbringing since I have never used the box nor some of the items in it.
Yes. The initiative was started by a team of 5 ladies.
We got our first donation from our mum because obviously it's a charity and obviously we were trying to raise funds, but we thought we could start with like 100 boxes, but that was impossible. So we kitted off our 5 boxes and we decided it's going to be a Christmas gift, like a Christmas box giveaway.
Lucy's inspiration for the Total Care box came from an article she stumbled upon: Why Finnish babies sleep in cardboard boxes. Underprivileged mothers receive the boxes for free under terms which require them to go through the minimum 4 antenatal clinics. 23-year-old college student Barbara had her first baby a short time ago. Today she's on a follow-up session.
During the morning sun, I put him in the box and put him outside to bask. But at night, I carry on with my work as he sleeps in the box. It is also really cheap because buying a baby crib is expensive. This box has really helped me.
Total Care box actually was introduced to Lengo Medical Clinic way back in April 2016. And up to now, I managed to give out 281 boxes to mothers.
The items in the box have been chosen due to their possible impact on reducing the 4 main causes of newborn death in Kenya: malaria, pneumonia, diarrhea, and neonatal tetanus. UNICEF says nearly 2.6 million infants worldwide die before turning a month old, a devastating statistic.
A Kenyan demographic and health survey has recorded the nation's maternal death rate at 488 deaths per 10,000 live births annually. So far, the initiative has extended its kindness to about 450 mothers.
Our vision says that we are reaching 1 million newborns in Africa by 2022. So apart from just growing within Kenya, within the next 5 years, I would love to see us grow in the East African region and well beyond that.
In addition, the co-founders of the Total Care Box are hoping to reduce the cases of neonatal death by educating women on post-birth aftercare. That's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Back to you, Vincent.
Really cool. Lenore, thank you very much. Now be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. The answers to a fashion lover's prayers on display in New York. We'll be right back.
In Congo, General Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko formally declares he will run in the March 20th election and challenge President Denis Sassou Nguesso, who has been in power in Congo-Brazzaville for more than 30 years. In the Central African Republic, about 3,000 people, including President and Prime Minister, attended a funeral Monday in Bangui for people killed in a May 1st attack on a church. In Libya, strongman Khalifa Haftar presides over a military parade in Benghazi and announces a military offensive to retake from terrorists the city of Derna. Ethiopian Airlines says it will buy more planes to step up its already rapid expansion and surpass an earlier target of 120 planes.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. High fashion lit up the night on the Met Gala's crimson and cream carpet outside the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. This year's theme, Heavenly Bodies of Fashion and the Catholic Imagination, inspired top designers to interpret how Catholicism has influenced fashion throughout the ages. Building a relationship with the Catholic Church took significant work by the Costume Institute curator Andrew Bolton. Eventually, the church lent more than 40 items to the exhibition. A papal tiara with 18,000 diamonds was flown to New York with a bodyguard. Well, next up, moving rhinos 3,000 miles by airplane from South Africa to Chad was never going to be an easy task. But 6 critically endangered black rhinos were transported from a holding facility at Addo Elephant National Park in South Africa's Eastern Cape to Chad's Zakuma National Park. The critically endangered species was last seen in the landlocked African country in the late 1980s. African Parks Johannesburg-based conservation group organized the location change to the Zakuma National Park, the reserve that it manages with the Chadian government. The group says the goal is to have the long-term survival of black rhinos and to restore biodiversity in Chad. Well, and finally, money isn't accepted at this new pop-up cafe in London's Covent Garden. Instead, the currency is recyclable plastic waste. Hungry visitors bring their plastic waste and are rewarded with a free meal and coffee. The 2-day pop-up is being staged by Belgian-based cleaning product producer eCover. The cafe's interior is decked out with upcycled decor inspired by eco-designers. But there is an educational element too. The Rubbish Cafe only accepts plastic waste that is recyclable, not doomed for a landfill. And that's what's trending today. For the political artists, the hope is not that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but that it will provoke an emotion, ignite an idea, change or further a belief. Africa 54's Paul Cisco has more.
The image by Peter Hirschfeld is one of several in a series of woodcuts and large and small prints that grace his home in Grantsville, Maryland, his office at the nearby university, and elsewhere, including on his website. Peter's work often reflects his political take on issues of local and national interest. In the wake of the Florida school shootings, February 13th, his wife Patsy and a friend decided to support the students at Marjorie Stoneham Douglas High School any way they could. Some there dedicated themselves to preventing what happened to them from ever happening again, to make U.S. schools safer by making it harder for those they think shouldn't have guns to get them, to do away with acts of gun-related terror. And they want to weaken the powerful National Rifle Association that lobbies on behalf of making guns more accessible and lobbies on behalf of lawmakers who feel as they do. Specifically, they want age limits for gun carrying increased nationwide to 21, to rid the country of repeater military-style artillery, and in general, stricter background checks, more restrictions on ownership, and their government representatives to represent their interests and the interests of more than 90% of the U.S. electorate, and not those of the NRA. Their growing movement led to the idea to alter one of his images, there are several in Hirschfeld's many series of woodcuts and prints, by adding part of the NRA logo of the National Rifle Association to it.
Okay, that's it. We're going to run it, right?
And printing it on T-shirts for like-minded activists. The very simple process called reverse dye sublimation is easier to see than explains. It takes about 5 minutes and just 40 seconds under the heat press to make the shirts. Hirschfeld produces artwork for social progress. When asked what his work means, he's cagey and vague, saying only, "It means whatever you think it means." On the 1-month anniversary of the shooting, declaring enough is enough, young people in many schools across America staged a school walkout. Then they followed that up on March 24th with massive demonstrations across the country and beyond its borders. 125 of the T-shirts were given away in Washington, D.C., adding to a galaxy of signs and other T-shirts expressing similar messages of support for the growing anti-gun movement in America. The estimated numbers of protesters varied wildly from city to city. One certainty is that millions are behind the growing movement, among them many socially conscious artists. The shirt's creation was a simple idea using a powerful image, born out of the belief that all have the right to gather in peaceful protest in this country and express themselves freely, and that they must at times to preserve and create a more perfect democracy. Paul Sisko, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our show. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Woodwork is any part of a house or building that is made of wood.
Crawl out of the woodwork.
This expression sounds troubling.
I won! I have the winning lottery ticket.
Oh, that's great. How much money did you win?
I won $25,000. But please, don't tell anyone.